name is Kiwi. I'm a GM with over 30 years experience, and after consulting with my lawyer,
Now, this is not legal
YouTube's
advice.
very own Saul Goodman, this video is where I now stand on the recent OGL, Open Gaming License debacle with Wizards of the Coast. And it keeps getting worse day after day with new leaked news regarding Wizards of the Coast subscription plans for D&D Beyond and its new AI-run tabletop. Unbelievable. Here's a brief recap of the recent PR disaster, just in case you live under a rock. With the new edition of D&D in the making, the fine folks at Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast management decided D&D wasn't making enough money. It doubled down on past errors and decided to monetize its major competitors with a new version of the OGL 1.1, sent secretly to major contributors under an NDA and a deadline to sign within a week. This OGL 1.1 agreement leaked, revealing language that rather than protecting its IP on its upcoming movie, TV series, and video games, demanded 25% royalties from successful creators with changeable conditions. Even more controversially, the agreement contained a clause that Wizards of the Coast claimed was designed to protect us and our partners from creators who incorrectly allege that we steal their work simply because of coincidental similarities. And what I, and the larger D&D community, call stealing. The D&D community, myself included, was outraged, and while major content creators galvanized the D&D community in protest, Wizards of the Coast remained silent while the D&D brand burned. Savvy creators in the RPG content creator community, Kobold Press and Paizo, announced projects to create new RPG game systems and Orc, an alternative to the open gaming license for players and third-party content creators alike. A Wizards of the Coast employee sent an email to leaders in the content creation community that added further fuel to the flames. And I quote, "I have decided to reach out because at my time in Wizards of the Coast, I have never once heard management refer to customers in a positive manner. Their communication gives me the impression that they see customers as obstacles between them and their money, indicating that there is internal conflict within Wizards of the Coast itself between upper management and the rest of the employees. I imagine specifically the creative team." The email advised that the Wizards of the Coast management was measuring the impact to their bottom line, looking mostly at D&D Beyond subscriptions. Prevalent figures in the D&D content creator community led an exodus of players to cancel their subscriptions on D&D Beyond. Further inside leaks from employees at Wizards of the Coast reveal that D&D Beyond has lost 40,000 subscriptions and counting. $5 a sub, let's do the maths. $200,000 a month. That's about $2.5 million a year of lost revenue. I think it's really important to remember that insiders at Wizards of the Coast and other employees are people, just like you and me, who love Dungeons & Dragons. They should not be the target of our frustration or anger. Without them, we wouldn't have the information to have stopped Wizards of the Coast in their tracks, which is exactly what has happened. D&D Shorts is going to drop a video on Thursday that is going to expose the inner turmoil within Wizards of the Coast over this issue. I'm sure it will be very interesting. Don't miss it. Speaking the only language that Wizards of the Coast management seem to understand, Wizards of the Coast used its recently acquired creative arm, D&D Beyond, to issue a statement on their behalf. A statement that was not well received by the Dungeons & Dragons community, as the apology contained duplicitous self-justification of the reasoning behind the updated OGL 1.1, gaslighting the Dungeons & Dragons community with unnecessary hubris, declaring that the situation was a draw. They announced that a new version of the OGL was being written that will not include royalties, excluding streamers, virtual tabletop, and charity work, and clarifying that they do not own third-party creator content. Wizards of the Coast's request to be forgiven was largely met with a middle finger from the Dungeons & Dragons community, people instead flocking to alternative gaming systems without looking back. So where do I stand now that the dust is beginning to settle? Silly me, thinking that the dust was beginning to settle. The very next day, a bomb drops, far bigger than the OGL, as far as I'm concerned. Leaks reveal Wizards of the Coast plans for its upcoming 1D&D virtual tabletop will lock out possibilities of homebrew content unless a $30 a month subscription is paid. This $30 subscription model is far too expensive for me. This is basically the new Wizards of the Coast CEO, who was formerly at Xbox, mind you, thinking she can turn D&D Beyond into PS Plus or Xbox Game Pass. The difference is you play PlayStation or Xbox every day, whenever you want. Personally, I play Dungeons & Dragons twice a month, 4 times a month at most. The AI Dungeon Master element is obviously meant to be Wizards of the Coast's game changer to monetize its players, effectively returning to the idea of making Dungeons & Dragons a video game or a digital board game. They've wanted to do this since 4th edition. Now they have the technology to perhaps pull it off, but it's not what I want or need. To run a game, locking out homebrew capability at lower pay tiers obliterates any use I could have for this. I never run an adventure as is. Any module immediately goes into the creative pot till something emerges that I'm happy with. Wizards of the Coast has grossly overestimated their ability to create an entirely new player base. They obviously don't care about their long-standing Dungeons & Dragons community, and I sense that another L is on the way, because they clearly don't understand what makes Dungeons & Dragons so special and unique in the first place. A player who has been a gamer since Atari and only tried out Dungeons & Dragons recently when I introduced them to the game, responded like this when I told Wizards of the Coast plans for artificial intelligence dungeon masters. Wow, I'm barely invested in Dungeons & Dragons, and that pisses me off. One thing I like about Dungeons & Dragons is that anything can happen. Total openness to be creative. It took me a year to understand and comprehend that I could do anything, and once I accepted that and broke free from the restrictions, it was lovely. I couldn't understand the freedom due to being so restricted by normal gaming experiences. I fell in love with D&D late in life because of that freedom of creativity. I made fun of geeks, until I finally had to admit I was one because D&D is massively cool. So speak for me. Done. The law. Now, does my live stream Spelljammer campaign infringe? I have used D&D Beyond's free Spelljammer Academy adventure as the base material for the initial launch of the adventure, so it's not 100% my own creation. The word Spelljammer is trademark of Wizards of the Coast, so maybe I need to rebrand. Maybe I need to run a Smelljammer campaign. I checked. It's available. Or maybe it could just be bathtubs with frickin' lasers, like the GigaChad DM himself. Maybe I just need to remove any mention of anything trademark or branded by Dungeons & Dragons itself. Why do I run pre-made adventures anyway? Well, I simply don't have the time to create everything myself from scratch. So I use a chunk of the pre-made adventure and then I do with it what I will. I turn vanilla into a banana split with the works. This is why Sly Flourish is my hero, because I'm a lazy GM. I use chunks of already written material to save me tons of time. And Sly Flourish's advice on how to do this, how to turn vanilla into something amazing, is pure gold. I can't recommend checking him out enough. My Spelljammer Academy is set on the back of the Spelljammer itself, the largest vessel known in creation, which is shrouded in myth and legend, and is not appearing in the 5th edition Spelljammer module, appearing in stores near you. My players are not cadets who signed up to explore Wildspace. They have their own unique backstories of why they were prescripted by the celestial bureaucracy in an emergency recruitment drive as a result of dire events that have unstabilized Sigil from its perch at the center of the multiverse. So my campaign is unique enough that it seems to be sanctioned under fair use.
A gray area where I'm not sure where a court would come down would be, say, live streaming a playthrough of an official Wizards of the Coast Dungeons & Dragons campaign. That's a tough call, though I would say that's analogous to live streaming a playthrough of a video game, which is also kind of a gray area. And it's an open question whether your playing through it is adding enough original content to be covered by fair use.
And we've reached a point in the adventure now that moving forward, more and more is going to be purely original material. So while it's nice to hear that Wizards of the Coast isn't going to come after streamers, while it's nice to have an agreement saying that Wizards of the Coast, like me, don't want to have to fight this out in court to learn the correct interpretation of the lore, I don't feel I need their blessing because I'm not doing anything illegal in the first place. I'm using D&D legally and fairly in the first place. The agreement that they're supposedly working on, we don't know how shifty it's going to be. If there's any language whatsoever contained in it that says that it can be changed, all of their promises mean literally nothing, and signing it will be a legally binding agreement that then they could take you to court on. Basically, I don't feel that Wizards of the Coast gets to ruin Dungeons & Dragons for me. They might own the trademark, but they don't own the idea of Dungeons & Dragons. As someone wiser and more charismatic than me said, they are part of our community. They can't force me to agree to an agreement that I don't want or need. So I'm going to keep playing with the toys that I already bought for as long as I see fit. Will Wizards of the Coast be getting any more money from me? Nope. What could change my mind on this? I think nothing that's realistically going to happen. It goes without saying, completely walking back on needing to change the original gaming license in any which way other than maybe making it stronger, or a billionaire philanthropist who likes playing Dungeons & Dragons could, you know, buy them out, clear house. Mr. Beast, have you ever played Dungeons & Dragons? How much money do you actually have? Mr. Beast is going to be the CEO of Twitter, so I guess he won't have time. It's a bummer. Now, before any of my treasured 50 subscribers unsubscribe because I said I'm still going to play with my D&D toys that I already bought and paid for, I don't have a D&D Beyond subscription. I'm not giving them any of my money. I use Fantasy Grounds, and I'm now genuinely looking for a new system. I'm going to follow Kobold Press's projects with close interest, but if and when I do change, it will be in my own time and on my own terms. Wizards of the Coast doesn't get to shit in my hot chocolate. Ronald the Rules Lawyer is organizing a huge event to introduce interested players to Pathfinder 2nd Edition using the beginner box at the beginning of February. And anyone can sign up as a player or a game master. I'll leave a link to his Discord channel in the subscription. I think I can do that. But if not, Ron the Rules Lawyer. Go to his channel, hit him up. I did volunteer to be a player in a mini D&D campaign that he wants to run. Part 2 of a mini D&D campaign that he wants to run with YouTube creators. I messaged him that, I'd be interested. I guess my 54 subscribers is not enough clout. I thought you were cool, Ronald. Just kidding, Ronald. I still think you're cool. Maybe one day you'll play with my future self. Now, if I get 5 subscribers who've watched the video to the end for this last moment announcement, who are interested in learning Pathfinder 2nd Edition with me, instead of playing as a player, which was my initial intention, I'll do what's necessary to DM. I think that means I have to get Foundry, although maybe it's possible to play it on Fantasy Grounds as well. So if you're subscribed and you're interested, drop a comment that you'd want to run Pathfinder during Ronald the Rules Lawyer's Beginner Box weekend, and we'll figure out how to make it happen. How about that? Now, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If you want to get me to the clout that Ronald needs to consider playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition with me one day, please subscribe. In the meantime, play the game you love with people that you like, and if you feel like a voyage to places strange and bizarre, check out our Astral Agents and Boats campaign. We'd love to have you on board. And despite the many technical issues that I ran into on the very first episode, as a brand new streamer, it's getting better and better as it goes along.